week. Joining us now is Matthew Thornton, director and video game analyst at Truist Securities. Matthew, it's good to have you here. And if I'm reading this correctly, the analyst estimate for Take-Two this afternoon would be a quadrupling, maybe quintupling of earnings per share from last year.
Yeah, that's right. I think you're going to see something very similar to what we saw last week with Electronic Arts. Electronic Arts reported gangbuster calendar 2Q results, really driven by their Sims and sports franchises. We expect to see something very similar this evening from Take-Two, perhaps even more so if you look at some of the Twitch viewership and search interest trends. But again, for Take-Two, it'll be driven by the Grand Theft Auto and NBA 2K franchises. So
what happens once people, are we just so far out from normalization that you don't have to worry as an investor in these stocks? Because at some point, once these trends reverse post-COVID, you have to imagine it's, all the video, look at Fortnite. All the video game playing people have done, they're going to be looking for, I think, something a little different for a while.
Yeah, I think what has happened during COVID is very clear. We brought in a lot more players into the funnel. Engagement has increased. We've got more paying players, and we've got accelerated mix shift to digital. Those that used to buy packaged goods have opted now to download digitally because that was the only option. And so we've seen a lot of benefits. We think things will start to normalize over time here as the economies open up and as routines normalize. However, we do expect the industry to keep some of that bump that we've seen because of COVID. They brought in new players. They brought in lapsed players. And like I said, we have accelerated some of that digital shift, which they will continue to see some benefit from. So There's no question we'll see normalization, but we think we'll be at a higher baseline coming out of this.
You also mentioned that there is a downside of COVID for the game makers, which is that we could be talking about, just as in other production companies, the release of new games, right?
Yeah, there's no question. And it depends on where you sit in the ecosystem, console versus mobile. But productivity thus far in terms of a work from home environment has actually held up very well. So we haven't seen much in the way of anything material delay-wise this year. We could see some into next year for sure. But again, this is more of a timing issue as opposed to a lost opportunity issue in our view. So they're certainly reaping the benefits right now. Even if you have some push-outs next year, you're talking quarters or even a fiscal year, that the opportunity isn't lost, it's delayed.
What's the trade-off of owning Take-Two versus Activision versus EA? Just sticking with those two because they haven't reported yet. Obviously, EA has set the bar quite high.
Yeah, we've actually switched our preference throughout the year. Our department does a best idea report. We had Activision as our submission to start the year. We had another department report that went out in May, and actually our submission at that point was EA. And in our most recent note, we actually called for Take-Two to probably show the best calendar 2Q results based on the data that we were seeing around that franchise. So we've been buy-rated all three names. We've liked the group, and we've tended to tactically move in between the three preference-wise. But again, the fundamentals across the board here are really quite strong.
Right. So give me just real quickly before we go then the main things you'll be looking for this afternoon.
Yeah, things like what they have to say about work from home productivity and how that's influencing their content pipeline. Not so much this year, but certainly in the out years, any commentary there around pipeline will be key. What they're seeing more recently in terms of the engagement and paying trends. So I think investors will be laser focused on the linearity from that vantage point. Yeah. But I think those will really be the big focus for us.